Namaste everyone. Welcome to this session of Indic Studies Toronto. Today the topic is Mahavidyas, the feminine universe of divinity and wisdom. And our speaker today is Aarti ji. Aarti Panchal is an Indic researcher, writer, speaker, and a classical dancer by passion. She has a YouTube channel dedicated to India's history, culture, and heritage. She works as a company secretary. So, Namaste Aarti ji, welcome, and please continue.
Namaskar, everyone. Thank you all for joining me on this very interesting topic on Mahavidyas. I shall like to begin by reciting a Gayatri Mantra of my Kul Devi, who also happens to be one of the Mahavidyas, Tripura Sundari. Om Aim Tripura Deve Vidmahi, Bhagaveshwarai Dhimahi, Tanno Mukti Prachodayat. In Tantric literature, it is said that Moksha Kahitur Vidya, Shri Shri Vidyanatra Sanchayah, meaning that Shri Vidya or Shakti is the only Vidya that gives salvation. There are different gods who provide different fruits in different ages, but these 10 Mahavidyas are uniquely empowered to give fruits in all the ages. Asya Grahan Matren Jivan Muktestu Sadhakah, meaning that a sadhak becomes free from bondage just by adopting this Vidya. So we see that the worship of Mother Goddess in other religions is lost, or I would say it survives just as a symbolic token, but it thrives in India through Shakti worship. It started with the beginning of human civilization and it still remains unbroken, be it worshipping 9 groups of Durga during Navratri or 10 Mahavidyas during Gupta Navratri. If you see the Mahavidyas, several Mahavidyas dwell in cremation grounds and they sit on the corpses. Few wear garland of skulls. They receive blood sacrifice. They are sexually aggressive. But why would a society which worships Sita shall worship a goddess who is outrageous and fierce? Why would anyone try to build a rapport with such bizarre goddesses? Most of them are associated with death. They are associated with inauspicious qualities. They are associated with pollution. They violate social norms and values. They question social comforts like security, honor, and respect. They are independent and they show a world where they demand services from the male counterparts. If they are understood within proper context, each of them reveals a spiritual truth. They are the awakening energies in every soul, and it has to be woken up. And when this energy comes in a meditative state, it is called Kundalini. They have the inherent capacity to channelize energy in a short span of time. Maha is great, Vidya is knowledge. They are the great paths to attain knowledge and wisdom. So the origin of Mahavidyas has been associated with Sati. According to a katha narrated in Mahabhagavat Puran, Daksh Prajapati, the father of Sati, he did not extend an invitation of yagna to Shiva, and Sati tried to seek Shiva's approval for attending the yagna. But due to the animosity between Daksh and Shiva, Shiva did not allow her to attend the yagna. But Sati did not listen to Shiva, and she said, I'll certainly participate in Prajapati's yagna by obtaining a share in the yagna or devastating it completely. And in the yagna, Sati gets into fire with intense anger. She turns dark and frightening. And Shiva is horrified at Sati's monstrous look and he starts running in all the 4 directions. And then Sati checks him in 10 directions after adopting 10 forms. And these 10 forms are Mahavidyas. Shiva can never escape them because Shakti pervades the cosmos. Shiva inquires about these deities and Sati replies to him, "O Shiva, the figure facing you is Kali. The one above you is Tara. On your right is Chhinmasta. On your left is Bhuvaneshwari. Baglamukhi is standing behind you. Tripura Sundari is in northeast. Dumavati is in southeast. Kamala is in southwest. Matangi is in northwest. Bhairavi is below you. It is very interesting to understand the Daksh Yagna symbolically. Sorry. Okay. So if you understand the Daksh Yagna symbolically, Daksh is prana, the vital energy or the Ichha Shakti. Sati is intellect and Shiva is knowledge. Daksh is defeated in the Yagna of creation. Why? Because creation is possible only when Ichha Shakti, intellect, and knowledge are balanced. Now, because Ichha Shakti, that is Daksh, he accepted intellect, Sati, but he rejected knowledge, that is Shiva, he got defeated in the Yagna. If we see the striking features of Mahavidyas, the first is cremation grounds. We see that few Mahavidyas dwell in cremation grounds because this is the place where five elements, the Panchabhutas, get dissolved, where dissolution takes place, dissolving anger, lust, all other attachments. Secondly, it is a place of transformation where people die to one more to another mode of being. So it is a place where the greatest human transformation from life to death happens. The second striking feature is female independence. We see that Mahavidyas are not depicted with any male counterparts. Even if they're depicted, they are depicted as subordinates, and Mahavidyas dominate them. They are the powerful goddesses in their own rights. They don't deserve powers from the male deities. It is their power that pervades in all the gods. The third striking feature is sexuality and awakened consciousness. Most of the Mahavidyas are said to be sexually powerful and attractive. And if we see their yantras, each Mahavidya has a yantra. And the dominant figures in that yantra are lotus and triangle. So both lotus and triangle have sexual connotation. The downward triangle symbolizes yoni. The upward pointing triangle is phallus. In most of the yantras, they both are superimposed, depicting sexual union. And lotus, it symbolizes womb, from where all the creation happens. The fourth striking feature is the garland of skulls, which denotes consciousness that has transcended the limitations of physical and the worldly existence. The mind, symbolized by the head, has left the body and is no longer attached or limited by it. It also symbolizes 52 alphabets of Sanskrit language, also the number of demons slayed by the goddess. So each Mahavidya has her own unique name, appearance, mantra, yantra, and powers. Let's discuss them very briefly. The first Mahavidya is Kali, the black goddess. Some texts say that all the Mahavidyas originate from Kali. Sati first turns into Kali and then she takes the other forms. Kali is the first among the Mahavidyas because she comes before time and before light. She is black skinned. She wears a garland of 52 skulls representing the Sanskrit alphabets. Her tongue lolls. Blood trickles from the corners of her mouth. She stands on the chest of Shiva. She drinks wine. She wears a crescent moon on her forehead. Tantrics view Kali's lolling tongue as if she enjoys all the flavors of the world without any bias. Even if she even enjoys all the things forbidden by the society. Her unbounded hair suggests the end of the world, the dissolution. Her four arms represent the complete circle of creation and destruction. Her black color tells us that she is the ultimate reality because black is the color in which all the colors merge. Black absorbs them and dissolves them. Her nudity represents that she is beyond any name and any form. She is an illuminated consciousness that cannot be hidden by the clothes of ignorance. She is a popular cult in India, especially in Bengal, in the east of India. Kali is worshipped by those who have strong mind. So she is worshipped by warriors. She is worshipped by uncivilized tribes, by wild people also. Tantrism believes that no sadhana is successful unless the fear of death is overcome. In fact, tantrics see the world as Mahashamshan, the great cemetery. And this Mahashamshan, the divine Kali dances. Kali carries with herself death and destruction. But destruction for what? For evolution, for upheaval. Time is the transformer. We see volcanoes, we see earthquakes, cyclones. Her actions are for quick upheaval. So are the wars, the revolutions and riots, which are to hasten the human progress. Kali is seen as the Shakti of Kal, the Shakti of time force, as the first path of knowledge. She represents female independence. She breaks stereotypes. She incites Shiva. She dominates Shiva. In Manisa Shilpa Shastra, which is a Sanskrit treatise on architecture, it says that Kali temples should be built far from villages and towns, beyond the border of civilized society, near cremation grounds, or where the wild people live. The next goddess is Tara. Tara almost follows Kali. She is the only Mahavidya which resembles very closely to Kali in appearance. She is almost like a national deity in Tibet. She has an important place in Tibetan Buddhism. In Buddhist context, she is very compassionate and benevolent. While in Hinduism, she has this Ugra Roop. In Buddhism, she is the Shakti of Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara. In Buddhism, Tara was invoked to face fears arising from crossing waters, fears from lions, fears from elephants, ghosts, and imprisonment. According to the Buddha legend, uh, Rishi Vashishta learned the method of worshipping Tara from Buddha himself. She is specifically associated with crossing waters and navigation. This implies that Buddhists got over their fears by worshipping Tara, by crossing seas and establishing Buddhism in Java. Seeing their advancement, Hinduism adopted Tara in Tantric Pantheon. But the question is, when Hinduism has a galaxy of gods and goddesses to suit their personal needs, why would it adopt an alien goddess? There are scholars who say that Tara is a Buddhist goddess. There are scholars who say that Shaktism is much older than Buddhism. And then there are scholars who say that Buddhism came into existence as a revolt to Hinduism. So it is a Hindu goddess which became popular in Tibet. Hence, it is still inconclusive regarding the origin of Tara. So Tara is denoted as a star who traverses in the space as the guiding light. In the Hindu context, Tara is fierce and she loves blood. In Mundamala Tantra, she is described as the one who enjoys blood sacrifice. Tara Tantra describes that Tara loves human blood more than animal blood. In Hindu lore, when during churning of ocean, Shiva drank the poison to save the world, Tara appeared and takes Shiva on her lap and she feeds him milk from her breasts, which denotes her maternal and nourishing aspects. And that idol can be visited at Tarapeeth Temple in West Bengal, which is near a cremation ground. There are several temples dedicated to Tara in North India and Nepal. The third Mahavidya is Tripura Sundari. She is called as Shodashi, Lalita, Kamakshi, Raja Rajeshwari. In Lalita Sahasranama, she is described as a queen who is seated on the throne, and jewels adore her. A crescent moon adores her forehead. Her smile overwhelms Shiva. She enjoys a prominent position in Kashmiri and the South Indian Tantrism. The cult which worships her is called Sri Vidya cult, which flourishes in whole of India, but especially in South India. There are not many temples of Tripura Sundari where her idol is worshipped, but there are many temples where her Sri Yantra is worshipped. For example, in Meenakshi temple at Madurai, coins are sold depicting goddess Meenakshi on one side and Sri Chakra on the other. In Varanasi, there is a temple of Tripura Sundari where it is said that she has the power to attract people and one can feel the pull of her strength while worshipping. She is also a popular goddess in Bhaktapur, Nepal. She performs three main functions, that is creation, maintenance, and destruction by herself, or she directs Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva in these roles. So we understand that she is the director behind the scenes. In Saundarya Lahiri, entire universe is created from a tiny speck of dust from her foot. In Vamkeshwara Tantra, she is called as the mistress of the world, the mistress of the Vedas. She is extremely beautiful and attractive. Saundarya Lahiri says that Kama, the god of love, received his powers by a glance from the goddess. She is often associated with triads like three lokas, three energies, three moods, three cosmic functions. She is triple natured as she is associated with three main channels of Kundalini Yoga. She stands for desire. Desire leads to creation, hence, desire being the third discipline of knowledge towards creation. The fourth Mahavidya is Bhuvaneshwari. Mother Bhuvaneshwari is known by earth, its construction, its energy, its physical material. She holds a goad, which means that she controls evil. The red lotus and the jeweled drinking bowl are the symbols of growth and wealth. She is Bhuvan, the mistress of the world. She is Vishwarupa, whose body is the world. Just as a spark, emerges from a fire or a spider makes its web, in the same way, this world has emerged from Bhuvaneshwari itself. We see that the rest of the Mahavidyas are also related to creation and destruction of universe, but this emphasis is mostly on Ma Bhuvaneshwari. She is also known as the mistress of five elements. She is often described and manifested in three colors, that is red, gold, and bluish, because these colors match with the colors of the universe. Bhuvaneshwari is also the cause of Mahapralay. Bhuvaneshwari not only nurtures the universe, she protects it. She stands for the concept of space. She is the space and gives Adhar to all the manifestations. The fifth Mahavidya is Chhinmasta, one of the very interesting Mahavidyas, which I found it really interesting. The goddess who cuts off her head. She is naked and happily drinking the blood flowing from her headless body. She stands on Kama and Rati, who are joined in a sexual intercourse. In Hinduism, Chinmasta doesn't have a widespread cult. The history of the history also is not very developed. In Tantric Buddhism, she is known as Vajra Yogini. Although we can't find early references of Chinmasta, it is suggested that she is a prototype and she is inspired from other goddesses who share similarities like being headless, naked, bloodthirsty. So, what attracts us towards her is her cutting off her head, which is a symbol of self sacrifice. The texts say that Chinmasta asks for blood, but emphasis is given on her self sacrifice, that she can give blood for her devotees. Chhinmasta is probably the most stunning representation in the Hindu pantheon of the truth that life, sex, and death are part of an interdependent system where creation is destruction and the cycle goes on. It is also associated with Kundalini Yoga, in which spiritual energy is awakened. It is said that there are granthis in our chakras which make a human unhappy and weak. So these granthis need to be opened if one wants to remain happy and one wants to move towards spirituality. Kama and Rati represent the awakened Kundalini in the Muladhara chakra. And the blood coming out of the throat, it represents the Kundalini, which is coming up first, breaking all the granthis. And it gets collided with the topmost chakra with such a force that she blows her head, that it blows off her head. Now, blowing off her head means getting rid of the mental conditioning. The worship of Chhinmasta, is at least at the public level, is it is extremely rare. There are hardly 2-3 temples of Chhinmasta, and Chhinmasta is worshipped only by tantric practitioners, and she is very dangerous to worship. So only brave people and tantric practitioners can worship Chhinmasta. Kali is known as Chandi and is fierce and terrible. But Chinmasta is more terrible than the terrible Kali because she is called as the Prachand Chandi. If we talk about its cosmic function, the interaction between the light and sound is known to the tantrics is goddess Chinmasta. Bhairavi. Few texts emphasize her beauty and power. Some texts describe her as a teacher also. She holds a book in her hand and she is said to be the composer of Vedas. She is also called as a female version of Bhairav. Bhairavi is also called as Kalratri. Kalratri is a form of Kali. Bhairavi is a popular goddess of Nepal. In Nuwakot, Nepal, Bhairavi is believed to spread malaria every year and spares those who believe in her. In Mahavidyas, there is only one Bhairavi. There is only one Bhairavi who has many forms. Bhairavi has forms like Sampat Prada Bhairavi, one who gives wealth. There is another form which is Sakal Siddhi Bhairavi, who bestows everyone with perfection. There is Bhai Vidvamasini Bhairavi, who is the destroyer of fear. There is Chaitanya Bhairavi, who gives awakened consciousness. Then there is Bhuvaneshwari Bhairavi, who gives creation and growth. Then there is Kameshwari Bhairavi for sexual desires and satisfaction. Annapurneshwari Bhairavi, who gives food. She is called as Parabrahma Swarupini, uh, whose form is the highest Brahman. She is called as Parameshwari, the mistress of all. She is called as Srushti Sahar Karini, who is the cause of creation and destruction. So, if you understand her cosmic function, Bhairavi is tapas. Tapas is the concentration of consciousness, and it has to be centered around a particular thing. Otherwise, there will be diffusion. This demarcation of energy, this uh, confinement of energy is necessary for creation. So Bhairavi is the force which results into the concentrated, exclusive action. Dhumavati. Dhumavati is a widow goddess. She is ugly and unstable. She rides on a chariot, and on top of the chariot is a crow. Her eyes are scary and her hands tremble. In one hand, she is holding a winnowing basket, and in the other hand, she gestures for a boon. Her nature is rude. She is always hungry and thirsty, and she looks dissatisfied. She is inauspicious, she is dangerous, and people abstain from her. She herself is poor and she is associated with poverty. She is Vishnu's awakening is the time of Dumavati, and it is called an inauspicious time for auspicious ceremonies like marriage, etc. So, according to the legend, when Sati's father performed a yagna, and when Sati jumped into the fire of a jumped into her fire, Dhumavati was born from the smoke of Sati's burning body. So Dhumavati used her, and Dhumavati is in many texts it is mentioned that she used smoke as a weapon to defeat the demons. She is a widow and socially she is nothing. There is no place for her in the society. On the top of a chariot is a crow, which is a meat eater and a symbol of death. Dhumavati lives in places that are considered desolate, like deserts, conflicts. She resides in crying children, bereaved children, in hunger, in thirst, especially in widows. Dhumavati creates a feeling of desire to be alone and a dislike for worldly things. Worshipping her is appropriate for those who have renounced the world. She encourages independence, she encourages loneliness, she encourages renunciation. Just as Dhumavati is a smoke and she does not stay in one place, similarly, sannyasis also wander and they do not stay in one place. Dhumavati is so she clearly reveals the negativity, which is an inevitable part of her life. She acknowledges the inherent miseries of existence and she encourages distaste for the world. Beyond name and form, beyond the human categories that the society has created, beyond all the worldly pleasures, Dhumavati reflects the ultimate knowledge, which, like a smoke, makes no division, no categorization of what is good, what is bad. So her cosmic function, if we think, is being non-being. Non-being is prior to a thing before it comes into existence. Now, for example, a non-existence of a tree in the seed. Seed holds the potentiality of a tree and time plays an important role. So after a time, tree comes out of the seed. From non-being, it is now a being now. So tantrics say that Dhumavati is not absolutely dark. She is smoky and she is impregnated with the embryo of light. How? Because the smoke carries with itself the particles of flame, and with time, it shall move towards light. The next Mahavidya is Baglamukhi. Baglamukhi wears yellow clothes. She wears yellow ornaments and yellow garland. To understand the story of Baglamukhi, in Treta Yuga, there was a cosmic storm and it threatened to destroy the universe. And Vishnuji was very worried. He went to Haridra pond. Haridra means the turmeric pond. He prayed to Tripura Sundari. Then the goddess gave birth to Baglamukhi, who was playing in the turmeric pond. And then Baglamukhi calmed down the storm with her great powers. Baglamukhi is also known as Pitambari Devi as she appeared in the turmeric lake. Many scholars have said a lot about the meaning behind the name Bagalamukhi. Some say that she is the goddess whose face is like a crane. Just as the crane hunts with so much of concentration and calmness, the crane is able to attract the prey towards itself without being in motion. Baglamukhi has exactly the same magical powers and which it gives to her devotees. Some scholars say that she is not Bagla, but she is Balgamukhi, and this name refers to her ability to control her enemies. Just as a horse is controlled by pulling the lagam, so this Baglamukhi controls her enemies with her powers. Balga in Sanskrit also means to paralyze. To paralyze means to control the five pranas of human being, that is pran, apan, vyan, udan, and saman. In the worship of Baglamukhi, yellow color is mandatory. Only yellow things are offered. The worshipper also has to wear yellow clothes. Her temples are often painted yellow. The texts say that worshipping Baglamukhi can make the worshipper's enemies dumb, deaf, or their intellect can get destroyed, or they can become poor. Baglamukhi is worshipped to gain control over one's enemies, to paralyze others, to attract others. Baglamukhi temples are very few. She is worshipped primarily through personal practice and which does not require public temples. In ancient days, when debates and arguments and exchange of knowledge used to happen, it was a tradition to invoke Baglamukhi to win the battle of wits, to win the battle of knowledge. Tantrics call Baglamukhi as Vak Stambhankari, the one who paralyzes speech of the opponents. She blocks the speech and the opponent is dumbfounded. If you talk about Baglamukhi's cosmic function, she suppresses the action of creativity after it has started. But then what will happen if there is sudden stoppage? Why will Baglamukhi suppress the action of creativity? Now, for example, what happens when a gushing current flow of water is suddenly halted? What will happen? It shall start to whirl around, it shall gather some momentum, and then it shall start flowing into new channels by changing its course. What happens when we hold our breath while doing pranayam? Every time the breath is arrested, it gives more force to the exhalation next time, and this pushes our pranic energy. So similarly, this sidestepping or this holding back, this pause makes the creativity process more enriching. It makes a person able to get in touch with oneself. The second last uh, goddess is Matangi. Matangi is also called as a goddess of nature. She is called as a goddess of speech, art, and music. She is offered leftover food as prasad. Worshippers present her with their own highly polluted, stale leftover food. In one case, a devotee offered a cloth stained with menstrual blood. So she is offered polluted items like the cloth of menstrual blood or the cloth of a dead person, the head of uh, a head of an animal. So in Hinduism, where menstruating women are not allowed to enter temples, the same Matangi, she disregards such restrictions. Matangi is associated with pollution. There is a low caste in Nepal which is called as Pore, which includes sanitation workers, toilet cleaners, and fishermen. Since these people handle waste and they live in pollution, Matangi is revered by them. Hence, she is often called as a low caste goddess. Matangi is also known by another goddess, Savreshwari. Savreshwari is the goddess of forests. Hence, Matangi is also associated with jungles and tribal culture. While Baglamukhi is for stopping the speech, Matangi is called Vag Vilasa, meaning she gives fluency in the speech, she gives felicity in the speech, she gives expressions in the speech. Tantric practitioners believe that the accomplished writers and the skillful orators and the inspired poets, they have universal appeal and they have the myriad rays of Matangi in manifestation. The last goddess is Kamala. She has a beautiful golden complexion. Elephants shower her with water. Kamala is the most popular goddess among the Mahavidyas. She is worshipped outside the Mahavidyas. She is identified by wealth, by power, by good fortune, by security. Her lotus signifies fertility and growth and tells us that this universe is as beautiful as lotus. Elephants also suggest royal authority when kings used them in the processes and they used in the military campaigns. Kamala is paired with Soma, she is paired with Indra, she is paired with Kuber, she is paired with Vishnuji. Her association with several male deities suggests different aspects of her character. Soma and Kamala are recognized by the vitality of plants and vegetatives. Indra is associated with rain, and in the same way, Lakshmi is also associated with fertility. Indra was the royal authority. When Lakshmi is with him, Indra prospers economically and politically. So we understand that the royal power, the authority, the prosperity are directly related to Shri. And without her, no king can be successful. Kuber is the lord of wealth, and in the same way, Lakshmi is also worshipped to get wealth. Vishnu is portrayed as a divine king. When Lakshmi is present, royal authority prospers. Where she is absent, it weakens and disappears. When we look at Lakshmi in the context of Mahavidya, Lakshmi is described sitting alone on a lotus in which there is neither Vishnu nor elephants. In the Shakti Pramoda text, Lakshmi has been called Kal Ratri. She is called Ghora, Tamsi, Bhima. On a cosmic scale, Kamala is for final manifestation. We have discussed about desire, light, space, time, speech, expressions, etc. for the process of creation. Kamala makes it manifested. She is for bliss and beauty. Baglamukhi stops the creation. Lakshmi is a force which has a life-giving essence. She sets in motion and manifests. The beliefs in Tantrism and goddess worship. Okay. So there are around 92 scriptures in Tantrism. Also, the number of Mahavidyas differ. For example, in Niruttar Tantra, there are 18 Mahavidyas, whereas in Narad Pancharatra, it talks about 7 million Mahavidyas. It says that Mahavidyas are the 10 stages of sadhana, which oozes out from Kali, the most fierce one, to the most benign goddess, Kamala. Other than that, Mundamala Tantra mentions that Mahavidyas are the avatars of Vishnu. Like Krishna is Kali, Ram is Tara, Varaha is Bhuvaneshwari, Narsimha is Bhairavi, Vamana is Dhumavati, Parshuram is Chhinmasta, Matsya is Kamala, Kurma is uh, Baglamukhi, Buddha is Matangi, Kaliki is Tripura Sundari. The Shakti Sangam Tantra says that the Mahavidyas are connected with 5 senses and 5 elements. Mahavidyas are associated with the fundamental makeup of humans. The beliefs in Tantrism about goddess worship. If we talk about fertility rituals in goddess worship, how can we forget the Kamakhya temple where the Ambubachi festival is celebrated every year? And this festival celebrates the annual menstrual cycle of goddess Kamakhya. It is also called as a Tantric fertility festival because it is closely associated with Tantric Shakti. It is also believed that during the 4 days of rituals of the festival, Mother Earth also bleeds to prepare for fertilization. So all kinds of agricultural work like ploughing and sowing are suspended. Secondly, Tantrism gives special importance to menstrual blood. And here comes the use of vermilion color, which is red. There are tribes which smear a stone with vermilion before sowing seeds. So this red vermilion implies the passing of energy of procreation to the earth and making it fertile. There is also there's also importance given to the female genitals. Yantras in the tantric also symbolize female organs. During Durga Puja, a yantra known as Sarvatobhadra Mandala symbolizes the female procreation organs and which is drawn on the ground in the form of alpona. The importance of mantra and yantra in Tantrism. In Tantric Shastra, mantra and yantra are very central to Tantric sadhana. The main elements of all the yantra is that there is a dot, there is a triangle, there is a lotus, circle, square. Yantra is seen as the most purest, highest, and the intense form of goddess. Symbolically, if we see, the upward triangle is Shiva, the downward pointing triangle is Shakti. The upward triangle is Phallus, the downward pointing triangle is Yoni. The upward triangle is the fire element. The downward triangle is the water element, while the circle surrounding them is the air element. The bindu is the sky element. The square is the earth element. This bindu, which is a sky element, it creates a gush of air that results into fire and creates water that ultimately results into earth. So it is often a symbol of generation, that from which all the creation proceeds, or that which all the creation is contained. As it opens and blossoms, the cosmos emerges. In this sense, it represents the womb from which the world is born. So more than the worship of deity, tantrics give more importance to the worship of yantra. If we talk about mantra, mantra shows every aspect of cosmological truth, of spiritual truth. Mantra contains all the reality. Just like a banyan tree is found in a seed, similarly, all the languages, all the sounds are found in the mantra seed. The mantra is to be repeated some 1 lakh times to get siddhi for every Devi, for every Mahavidya. So every Mahavidya has its own mantra, and that is to be recited to get the siddhis. If we see the various representations of Mahavidyas by scholars and tantric practitioners, first is the association with Shiva. Generally, Mahavidyas limit, they frighten, or they control Shiva. They overpower him, except like in the case of Dhumavati and Kamala. A common theme in a tantric text is that Shiva is ultimately dependent on Shakti. Shiva is Shav without Shakti. The second representation of Mahavidyas is in the form of life cycle of a woman. It may be interpreted that Mahavidyas symbolize the age of a woman. Like, for example, Shodashi, Tripura Sundari, is 16 years old. Dhumavati is aged and a widow. Annapurna Bhairavi, a form of Bhairavi, has motherhood qualities. But also the other point to ponder is that Mahavidyas actually don't emphasize on motherly qualities. The third way of representing Mahavidyas is seen as three gunas. Mahavidyas are classified into Sattvic, Rajas, and Tamas. According to the Kamdhenu Tantra, Tara is identified with Sattva guna. Bhuvneshwari, Chhinmasta, they are associated with Rajas guna. Dhumavati, Kamala, Bhagala, they are related with the Tamas guna. They are also related to colors, like Sattva is white, Rajas is red, Tamas is black. So Kali, Tara, they have dark and black complexions, so they are associated with Tamas. Bhairavi, who has red complexion, would be associated with Rajas. Mahavidyas with golden or light complexions like Bagla and Dhumavati, Chhinmasta would be related to Sattva Gun. Another way of representing Mahavidyas is to classify them into fierce and the peaceful manifestation. Kali, Tara, Chhinmasta, they are in the Rodra forms of Mahadevi, while Shodashi, Bhuvaneshwari, Kamala, Bhairavi, they are in the little Saumya. Like Kamala is the most Saumya form of among all the Mahavidyas. The last is the left-handed worship, the left-handed goddesses and the right-handed goddesses. Tantrism is two parts of worship. Left-handed worship, which is dangerous and is done by the tantric practitioners, like that of Tara, Kali, Chhinmasta, Baglamukhi. So there's some unnatural ways of worshipping. And then we have the right-handed worship, which is done in a natural way by normal people like us. So that includes the worship of Bhuvaneshwari, Kamala, and Dhumavati. Okay, so we understand that Shakti, this energy, has no beginning and no end. Mahavidyas are quick to grant boons. Only in the Indian thought, we talk about goddesses' superiority over male counterparts. And Shiva in no way felt belittled by this awareness. He was only spiritually awakened. So, befittingly, they are referred as the great goddesses of wisdom. Here I'll wrap up my presentation. This was just a very small attempt, of tiniest of the tiniest drop in the ocean of Mahavidyas and Tantrism. We can proceed for the further discussion. Thank you, Index Studies, for this opportunity, and thank you all for your patient listening.
Thank you, Aarti ji. That was a wonderful presentation. We will now open the floor for any questions. So you can raise your hands in the chat window, or you can type your question in the chat thing. So Anandji, please go ahead.
Aarti ji, thank you very much for a very lucid explanation. Very beautifully presented.
Thank you, sir.
I have a question about Chhinmasta Devi that you showed. The cutting off of head and drinking the blood, would it have anything to say that thinking is not necessary? It is the direct experience that is more important, or something on that line? Because head is considered as the thinker or the seat of intelligence. So that is being cut off, and the blood, which is coming from our body, is being drunk. So I believe it could have something to do with direct experience. Please enlighten.
Okay, very nice question. In fact, a very nice interpretation, I would say. I have not come across any such interpretation yet, but what Chhinmasta is actually seen as the form of Parvati. I'll just narrate a story behind cutting off her head, which I've not narrated in the PPT. So what happens? Parvati goes to bath with her sevaks. So now that those sevaks are hungry, and they tell her that please give us food. So now because due to some circumstances, what she does is she cuts off her head and she serves the blood of her body to the sevaks, to her sevaks or friends. So that is how she is. So basically, this story emphasizes on the importance of food, on the importance of self-sacrifice more than what you said. So I don't know about what you interpreted, but I think it's a very nice interpretation by you. But the story of Chhinmasta and anything related to Chhinmasta doesn't go anything in these lines. Is whatever little understanding I have, or whatever little I have read.
Sardaji has typed a question. She's asking, is Varahi a Mahavidya?
Varahi is a Mahavidya.
Is it a Mahavidya?
You know, the number of Mahavidyas has been changing. Like I am just talking about 10 Mahavidyas, which is the tantrics worship as Mahavidyas, the Dasha Mahavidyas. But if you see now, there are some people say, some texts there are 12 Mahavidyas, which includes Annapurna and Durga. Then there are texts which say that there are 7 million Mahavidyas. So like it could be, it could not be. I'm not sure.
Pandita Indrani ji, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. Namaste and Sitaram from Trinidad and Tobago. Let me congratulate this young lady here on such a wonderful presentation. It's good to see young Hindus coming forward. Aarti, I am new also to this area of research and understanding the Hindu worldview. I'm getting the impression that that there was a traditional kind of women's worldview, seeing it through Shakti, the principle of Shakti, and that sort of went down through the ages. I'm just asking, and whether this is a kind of was it always parallel to the way like the Shiva Shakti way of interpreting the world, and is this or are you saying Shakti was dominant in some period, and or that it is dominant?
Okay, thank you so much for the question, ma'am. Shakti has always been there since time immemorial. We have, the research says there are many statues of goddesses which have they've been carved out and they've been brought out in the research. And it says that Bharat, India, the Hinduism has always venerated or revered Shakti as the ultimate reality and not the uh, the other gods. And in fact, it says that all the gods, the powers of all the gods, it is derived from Shakti itself. So I think this Indian thought has always been there. It is not, it may also be there in other religions also, but for India, in the Hinduism, it still remains, it still continues with Shakti worship. So we've always believed that Shakti is the ultimate power, the ultimate reality.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. One
Next
has
from-
asked me from KG Seshadri ji,
Yeah.
which are the best texts to study the Mahavidyas with reference to their legends? Firstly, there are many books on Mahavidyas. There are books from the perspective of tantrics. Then there is Devi Puran, which is the ultimate Puran which you can refer for Mahavidyas.
Anuji, please go ahead.
Hello, Aarti. Thank you so much for such a beautiful presentation. I want to actually just contribute to that discussion that was happening about Chhinmasta. And a very dear Aghori Sadhu friend had actually once shared his wisdom with me and said, the reason she's always shown sitting on a copulating couple is that when the Kundalini rises and you transcend sexuality and physical identity, and that the cutting of the head is basically the annihilation of the ego.
Okay.
And what the gentleman was saying, his interpretation as the ending of the mind, it is truly that. And therefore the beauty is that she nourishes life itself through her own blood. So that one stream of blood that is going into her own mouth, it is about the cyclical nature of life nurturing life itself.
Yes,
And
very nice. Very interesting,
so
ma'am.
they are, and there was another beautiful interpretation. In fact, that is what I had shared in the talk that I had given, that the entire the genesis of the world and of the universe and development of society was shown through the iconography of each goddess. So the dark matter state is shown by Kali, the Big Bang through Tara, then the formation of the three realms by Tripura Sundari. So it was very beautiful. And in the end, when we come to Matangi and Kamala, today when you were sharing about Matangi, I understood even better what he meant, that how culture develops, by allowing people to own themselves. And then the high point of culture is when the woman is at her peak in terms of grace, in terms of prosperity.
Very true. Yes.
Sardaji, you have a question?
Sir, I would just like to state that all female power ultimately merges into Shakti, isn't it? Is my understanding right? All female goddesses and power,
Yes.
it merges into Shakti, isn't
Correct.
it? For
Yes.
example, you have the so-called higher rank of goddesses like Lakshmi, Saraswati, Durga, or a Grama Devatas and local goddesses and folk goddesses. Finally, whichever story I read, whether it is the Matangi story or the Gangama stories, which we have in Andhra Pradesh, and every other story, the other caste-based goddesses like Kalika Parameshwari, Kanyaka Parameshwari, all the goddesses are ultimately transformed into Shakti,
Shakti,
or Parvati, isn't it? So all gods, female goddesses merge into Shakti. Is my understanding right?
Yes. This is what my understanding also.
Sanjay ji, please go ahead.
Thank you, Aarti ji, for such a wonderful presentation. And
Thank
a
you.
comment and a question, like it's sad to see that this is not part of a mainstream education. I think humans would have been better off with this divine knowledge. The question that I have is, you mentioned about invoking the Kundalini Granthis. So I think there are references in the Lalita Tripura Sundari about it, of invoking
Right.
this. But you kind of attributed to some other goddess, I believe. So, I mean, I'm just a novice in this, so care to explain that? Thanks.
Okay. Yes, sir. Firstly, to your first comment that it is not in the mainstream education, this is very true. My Kuldevi is Tripura Sundari, and I've been worshipping her for 10 years. And only recently I came to know that she is a Mahavidya, and then only I started my research. So I know about Tripura Sundari, but I didn't know that she is a Mahavidya. Secondly, sir, can you please repeat your question? The second question.
The second
Kundalini
question was,
awakening.
yeah. So I think Lalita Tripura Sundari has the in the shlokas of the Lalita Tripura Sundari, it's mentioned the invocation of the Granthis.
Okay, but that is like it may be mentioned, but there are many other books also in which it is mentioned. So I think all the Devis, all the Mahavidyas, they help in the invoking of Kundalini.
Yes, Ji, please go ahead.
Yes. Namaste, and thank you for conducting this seminar. It was very informative and helped to clear a lot of questions that I
You
had.
want to-
How do they stay in balance and harmony among themselves?
That is group, right? That is, you should ask the person who has grouped them as Mahavidya. And secondly, if you want to bath in a river, you cannot bath in the entire river, right? You have to bath in a spot. So basically, to perceive or to gain the siddhis of that Mahadevi, even if you follow one Mahavidya, that serves the purpose.
Sampanand Ji, please go ahead.
Yeah, namaskar to all of you present here. The Mahavidyas, because I look at them from a very deeper spiritual sadhana point of view. The first thing is the Adya Shakti, the Paratpara, the primordial goddess who has infinite powers, like as it was mentioned by Aarti during her talk at one place, that one of the tantras mention, and most of the tantric texts, they mention that the goddess has infinite powers, but so each power is called Vidya. Vidya means a path to realize the highest in us, a path to self-realization. Each of the Mahavidyas, they are a discipline, they are a path to self-knowledge, self-realization. And
Correct.
from the deeper spiritual point of view, and some of these things were mentioned by you, Aarti, they have certain, like cosmic fundamental functions. So each of these Mahavidyas in the cosmos, they constitute a complete system of knowledge. And each of these goddesses, whether Kali or Tara or Sundari, Kamala, each one governs a particular fundamental function, and each one presides over a particular creative principle of existence. Some of these were mentioned by you. For example, like Dhumavati, as she's the non-being, the asat, unmanifest. And when because someone was asking like how they're related to each other. So this is where I would like to add, like when Dhumavati presides over non-being, the asat, and when creation begins, Kali, which is the feminine form of Kala, Kala eva strilinge Kali iti uchyate. So she's the time, and Bhuvaneshwari represents the space. And then we have the flaming word of Supreme turned towards manifestation, that is Bhairavi. It can be compared with the Paravak. Then the Pashyanti is can be compared with the Tara, who is the perceiving word. And the expressed word, which is Vaikhari, can be compared with Matangi. The primordial luminous desire, the Ichha Shakti, which can be compared with Sundari, and while the delightful beauty with the harmony, because later Kamala is also another name of Lakshmi, who represents the beauty and harmony. Chhinmasta combines light and sound, as it was pointed out in your talk. And the Bhagala Mukhi, it is not just paralyzing the speech, but it
Giving a
arrests,
pause to the
it arrests the free flow of things,
thing.
so that she takes control over that. So measured
She
energy
checks
comes,
the creation process.
yeah, checks. So the checking and balancing and regulating,
Controlling.
measuring.
Yeah.
So this is the domain of Baglamukhi. And when we talk about our practical aspects, so for example, Kala, time, which is represented by Kali. So it is our prana. Kala is what? Kala is the movement in life. So to experience the time, space, and the power of speech in its different grades, these are part of our daily sadhana. When we take off this sadhana for self-realization, these Mahavidyas play very important role in our spiritual growth. Though there are plenty of powers. So for example, like we worship Durga, who is not Mahavidya, but the characteristic feature of Durga can be seen in Bhairavi. So in this manner, we see, for example, like you have the Navaratri, the 9 forms of Devi. So they all will be incorporated into certain of the Mahavidyas. And they preside over all the Dasha Dik, like 10 directions. They also, that is why Dasha is important. Like we have all the, though you had pointed about the 5 Indriyas and 5 elements, but here the Dasha Indriyas, the Pancha Karmendriya and the Pancha Jnanendriya, that also makes Dasha, and then they are connected. So this Dasha is important, Dasha Mahavidya, in our spiritual journey and leading towards the self-realization. And each of the Mahavidyas have many corresponding aspects in the way in the Upanishads. For example, like you turn to the Upanishads, there are many
Samparanji,
Vidyas. Yes,
we have
I'll
some
just
more
conclude
questions.
in
So
a
we'll like
second.
to take some more
Few seconds.
questions.
Yeah. I'll just conclude in just few seconds.
Ji,
Means
ji.
30 seconds. So what I was trying to point out is that Upanishads are the texts of Brahma Vidya. So the same way each Mahavidya is a Brahma Vidya, helping us realize the self-knowledge, God knowledge, and world knowledge. So therefore the Mahavidyas can be seen in correspondence with many Vidyas which are present in the Upanishads and various other sacred texts of India. So this is a very, very important topic. And as someone was pointing out that why these things are not as mainstream education. So if it is incorporated and a deeper understanding of Mahavidyas are given in our education, made a part of our education system. Much of the vague and things which are happening in the name of feminism and Shakti, the ugly things, those things will not be there in our system, in our society, in our education system. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for this.
Nandakumar ji, please go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Namaste. Thank you. I was not privy to the earlier part of the presentation, so I came in pretty late. So excuse me if the question has already been answered. In our prayers to the Devis, where does this come in? To Lakshmi, Saraswati, and Parvati and Durga, where does this come in? And is it integral? Firstly. Secondly, is there a different form of prayer for each of them? And is it a combined thing?
So I'll try my best to answer this question. Right. First, every Devi has her own prayer, and also all the Devis are the roop of the other Devi. Like for example, there is Annapurna Bhairavi, which is the roop of Bhairavi. So basically, there are prayers for all the goddesses separately also. And secondly, if you talk about Saraswati and Parvati, these are called the Sattvic Devis. And then we have the Dash Mahavidyas, which are Tamas Devis. So your question is, prayers are different for all the Devis, but that is what I have to answer.
Anil Kumar ji, please go ahead.
I have a quick question, rather a personal question. You just mentioned that you have been worshipping Tripura Sundari Devi for last 10 years. Can I ask, how do you worship?
Okay. Firstly, Tripura Sundari has a Shri Yantra, and there is Kamala Stotram, which is recited for Shri Yantra. It is said that Tripura Sundari is also called as like who gives boons very quickly. Tvarita, so she gives very immediately. And if her, like the tantrics, the people who believe in Tripura Sundari, they believe that worshipping a Shri Yantra is more powerful because that is the purest form of the goddess. So I recite Khadagmala Stotram, and other than that, I do chanting of Gayatri Mantra of Tripura Sundari. That is Om Em Tripura Deve Vidmahe Bhagaveshwari Dhimai Tanno Mukti Prachodayat. That I chant 108 times daily. That is how I worship.
We have a last question from Sunita ji. Sunita ji, please go ahead.
Aarti ji, thank you so much. That was just a brilliant lecture. I'm interested in knowing more about Tara. I actually read the homage to Tara, the Tibetan prayers, and the way Tara is described there, I missed your description of Kali. I came in just when you started on Tara. To me, sounds a little bit like Kali's characteristics. She's described as very fierce, at the same time benign, and quite ruthless, but very just. And she is the goddess of fearlessness. Now you talk about it being a goddess that helped perhaps Tibetans or whoever to cross the seas, but it's actually given out in Buddhism, especially Mahayana Buddhism, as the mantra, Tara mantra is for fearlessness. So Tibetan folklore actually says that the origins of Tara are in a real person, a princess who really was a warrior princess, and somebody said to her, I'll give you a boon that you're born a man next time. And she said, no, I will always be born a woman to basically protect everyone. And I suppose to symbolize the strength of Shakti in some ways. So I'm just wondering, I mean, you just now said all the goddesses are connected, their energies are connected. How do you see Tara linking up to any of them?
Correct. Tara in Buddhism is a very compassionate and benevolent goddess. I'll just narrate a story behind it. Avalokiteshvara was a bodhisattva, and when he was going for nirvana, then all the animals and all the human beings, they started crying. And when he also started crying, that first tear, that was the passion, that was a tear of compassion, and that was Tara. And that is how Tara was born, and this is how she is called as a compassionate goddess in the Buddhist folklore. Other than that, in Hinduism, she is a very ugra, she is in a very fierce roop. But if we see the Buddhist, in the Buddhist context, she is also somewhere mentioned as a fierce goddess. And in Hinduism, she is mentioned as a benevolent goddess also, because when she is breastfeeding Shiva in the Samudra Manthan, when he swallows the poison and all, so we have the folklores of that also, where she has the motherly instincts also. So basically, she has Devi, she is soft and rude and everything in Hinduism literature also, and also in Buddhism literature.
Thank you, Aarti ji. I think we have run out of time and it's
Okay.
quite late also. So Dhanyavad again
Thank
for
you so
doing
much,
this
everyone.
wonderful presentation. And thank you, audience, for participating in our Indic Studies seminar. We look forward to you joining us for our next seminar, which will be presented soon. And this recording of today's session will be available on our YouTube channel, Indic Studies Toronto. Namaskar and Dhanyavad. And Namaskar,
Thank you,
Aarti ji.
everyone. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for patient listening. Thank you so much.